So you have a client who is dissatisfied. You have a client who feels like they didn't get what they paid for. They are not happy with the work that you've produced or with the service that you have offered. And they are really upset. And they are more than happy to tell you about how unhappy they are with your services and with what you have produced. What do? Well, this is the first in a series of two videos where I'm going to break down for you a step by step process that you can use when your clients are dissatisfied with your work or with your service. Now, let me be clear. This is going to serve those of you who are service based business owners, those of you who are project based business owners, if you are a coach, if you are a consultant, you'll find some value in this as well. Okay. If you are in a product based business, a goods based business, so let's say you sell jewelry or clothing or body butters or something like that, this is probably not going to be the video for you. But if you are in some type of service based business where you provide some type of an experience or you have some type of done for you kind of thing where maybe you do websites or SEO or social media marketing or any of those different kinds of things, you're a coach, you're a consultant, you have the type of business where you have to produce something for the client who has hired you. This is going to serve you well. Okay, so we're going to go over a step-by-step process on exactly how to solve any issues that you are having with your dissatisfied clients, provided that they are dissatisfied with the work that you have produced. Okay. The first video, we're going to lay the foundation. And in the second video, I'm going to go over the templates, how to create the resolution plan, how to create the project management for those of you who have a team and you have a team of people who are going to be doing a lot of this back end work for you. I'm going to give you all of those things in the second video. Okay. The first video is going to be available totally for free here on YouTube. It's available on Instagram. It'll be on our website at perfectflowfunnels.com. It'll be totally available. The second video is going to be available for those who are in our group coaching membership or as a standalone product. So at the end, in the comments, whatever area, you'll find links to be able to join us in group coaching or to be able to purchase this as a standalone product. Okay. So there's the bluff. Bottom line up front. I've given it to you. If you're still here, let's go ahead and get started. Now, there are three reasons typically why your client may be dissatisfied with your service or with your work or with what you have produced. The first reason is because you didn't do what they asked you to do. Now, take a deep breath. Okay. I understand that as service providers, we are very proud of the work that we do. Okay. You have spent a lot of money in training, in coaching, in certifications, in classes, in courses, in reading books, in trial and error, and all of the things to be really good at what it is that you do. And when you make that kind of investment to be as good as you are in what you do, sometimes it can feel impossible to believe that you may not have given your client what he or she paid for. Okay. The challenge here is that sometimes we get so enamored with the way that we do what we do, with the process by which we do what we do, with our work. If you have provided any type of bonuses as a part of this service, we can become enamored with those services, with those bonuses. The reality is, it doesn't matter how much extra work you put in or how much additional you give or how many more hours you put in or how many more fancy things you added. If you didn't give them what they wanted, you've got to fix it. Okay? Doesn't matter how much work you've done. If the work that you have done does not produce the outcome that they were looking for, and that outcome is what was promised in the agreement that you have with your client, then it's not a matter of who's right or who's wrong or any of that at this point. It just simply needs to be fixed. Okay? So that's one reason. The second reason is that sometimes you have done what your client has requested, but it looks different than what your client thought it would look like. And so in that case, it's just a bit of a miscommunication, right? Like you did it, you produced whatever that outcome was. It just doesn't look the way that they thought that it was going to look. And so because it didn't, they missed it. And so you can communicate that, and there's a way to be able to do that with grace and professionalism and with excellence, where both of you end up being extremely happy with the work that has been done. Okay. And then the third reason is sometimes they just making up shit. Yes. Sometimes you will have clients who, because they aren't happy in any other area in their lives, they're not going to be happy with anything that you do. Doesn't matter if you did it, doesn't matter if you did it right, doesn't matter if you did it on time, it doesn't matter if you did it with excellence. They're not going to be happy. Okay. And then you have the other subset of people who are notorious for getting services and just finding ways to get refunds and finding ways not to pay for them. Okay. Those types of clients you can't do anything with. Okay. You take that as a lesson. You do a better job of vetting people up front before you allow them into your programs, or before you take them on as consulting clients, or before you take them on for whatever project it is that you do in your business. And then you move on. You can't really do anything about those. So this is really going to be focused primarily on the first two reasons, which is A, maybe you really didn't do what it is that they wanted you to do. You may have done a lot of work, but it wasn't what they were asking for. Or maybe you did what they asked you to do, but it doesn't look the way they thought that it would look. And so there's some miscommunication there, and you just need to clear that out. Okay. Now, before we get into the process, there are three things that you have to be very clear about. Okay. Number one, you have to have a sincere desire to make this right, whether it is on the fault of your company, or it's on the fault of your client, or it's because of circumstances that were outside of your control. You have to have a genuine desire to solve the problem. And you have to be more invested in solving the problem than you are in being right. I'll say that again. You have to be more invested in solving the problem than you are in being right. If you don't have that as an intention, then nothing else that we discuss in this video is going to work. I taught this part of the video live on Instagram a couple of days ago, and somebody jumped in to the comments. And before we could even get into all of the parts of the process or anything, this person was already like, the client's not always right. They're not always, sometimes the customer's wrong. There's a difference between customers and clients, by the way. Sometimes the customer's wrong. Sometimes the client's wrong. And I'm not kissing anybody's butt, blah, 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 blah. And I'm looking at this person and I'm like, you are absolutely the person I would never, ever, ever do business with, because you are more concerned about being right than you are about solving the problem. Okay. Understand that at this point, it is not about who's right and who's wrong. It is about solving the problem. Now, solving the problem may look like you completing the work or making some type of adjustment or making some type of concession. Solving the problem could also look like parting ways, right? It could look like that. But at this stage, you don't know what it looks like. So you have to come into this thing with the intention and the desire to solve the problem. And your desire to solve the problem for your client has to be greater than your desire to be right. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to have been really clear in your contract about the scope of your work and the scope of the relationship between you and your client. Because sometimes the reason why your client may be dissatisfied is because there wasn't clarity in what the deliverable was supposed to be, or what the outcome was supposed to be, or what the relationship was supposed to be. For those of you who are coaches and mentors, maybe there was not real clarity about what that relationship was supposed to be. And so when there's not real clarity, then when you're trying to solve the problem, it gets really gray and really muddy here in this area, because it's like, okay, well, there were no clear outcomes. There was no clear deliverable, right? So it becomes this your word against mine kind of thing. And those are not, those kinds of issues are just almost unsolvable. Okay? Did I just make that word up? I probably did just make that word up. Unsolvable. Unsolvable mysteries. Okay. The third thing is you had to have been extremely honest about your level of proficiency prior to having your client sign that contract, meaning that you had to be very honest about what you could do or what you could not do. Or for those of you who have teams, if you have team members who are working with you on these projects or in these situations, you had to be very honest about what you could do and what you could not do. Now, I want to touch on this. I want to touch on this a little bit, very specifically from a sales standpoint, because I've been on both ends of this issue. Okay. Sometimes you've got a really, really, really hot lead. Okay. And this person is excited to work with you, and they really, really want to work with you. They want whatever service or whatever it is that you're selling. However, when you look at the requirements, what they are requiring for this relationship or for this project, you may find that some of the things that they are requiring are outside of your scope of proficiency, or outside the scope of the proficiency of your team. Okay. It's very important in those situations that when it's outside of the scope of the proficiency of your team, that instead of trying to sell them something else, that you simply refer them out or let them know, listen, we're not equipped to be able to do that. Okay? And I'm going to tell you why. I've seen this happen two different ways. I've seen this happen two different ways. The first thing I have seen happen is they'll try to convince the client that what the client is asking for cannot be done, simply because they don't really have the skills to be able to do that. And so you convince the client that it cannot be done. Okay. And so you convince them that it cannot be done, and then you try to sell them on something that is within your scope of proficiency. And so the client pays for it. And then you get into the situation where no matter what you produce, they're not happy with it, because what they really want was what they asked for in the beginning. And so even though you said this is what we can produce, and you may be producing what it is that you said that you can produce, they're not going to be happy, because what they originally wanted was what they asked for to begin with. And so now what you are offering is more, it feels to them like they're settling for less. And oftentimes they're just not going to be happy with that. And they're not going to be happy with your work. Okay. And so when you're not completely honest about your proficiency or the proficiency of your team, no matter what's in the contract, your client's not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy, because essentially what they've done is they have settled for less than what they originally wanted. Okay. So that's the first way that the first direction that can go in. And then the second direction obviously is saying, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, I can do that. And then not being able to do it. And then the client's not happy. Okay. So in order for this to work, you had to have been completely honest about your level of proficiency to do whatever it was that they were asking for. Okay. And so those three things need to have been in place. You have to desire to make it right and to solve the problem more than being right. You have to be extremely clear about the scope of your work in your contract. And you have to be extremely honest about your level of proficiency in completing or in giving them what it is that they're asking for, because what they're asking for is what they believe they're paying for. Okay? Those three things have to be in place. Now, let's go with step 1. Step 1. The first thing you need to do is acknowledge their frustration. Okay? Understand that at this point, it is not about who is right and who is wrong. It doesn't matter. Okay? Understand that at this point, your client believes that he or she is right. That's what they believe. And this is not the time to point fingers and to move in all of these different directions. And it's not the time to take offense. And I know that that can be difficult, especially for those of us who are service-based business owners, because especially for those of you who are solopreneurs and who don't have a team yet, because you're the one who's doing the work. And so you're so close to the work. And so when someone tells you that they're not pleased with the work or with the service, it's very easy to take that as a personal attack against you, your character, your business, your skills, whatever. But understand that being offended is a choice. And so in this moment, what you need to do is you need to acknowledge their frustration. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that, if now let me say this, if the client is verbally abusive, that's a completely different, oh my God, you're a fucking bitch, you're a fucking asshole, da, 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 da. Like, you get to decide whether or not you even want to engage with people who speak to you that way. I'm not talking about that. I wanted to throw that in because a lot of times when I go through these kinds of processes, there's a lot of what if, what about, what if, what about, what about. You're an adult and you're a business owner. You know if someone is being absolutely verbally abusive, and you can decide exactly how you want to deal with that, and whether or not you even want to continue having that person as a client. I'm simply speaking about someone who is venting their frustration, because what you've got to understand is when somebody hires you, especially for those of you who are in project-based businesses, meaning that you produce something. So I'll give you an example. Perfect Flow funnels. We have pre-built funnels. So we produce funnels. We do process libraries. We do business playbooks, right? These are actual deliverables, right? So for those of you who are, you've got to understand that when you produce deliverables, or for those of you who are coaches or mentors, understand that the reason why they're hiring you is to collapse time, right? So if you're a project-based business owner, they are hiring you so that they can get their time back, right? So they can get full access to the time that they would have spent working on whatever that deliverable is. And if you're a coach or a mentor, people are hiring you to collapse time. Either way, a huge part of this frustration is the fact that they're even having to take the time to have this conversation. So you have to be willing to acknowledge that. You have to be willing to acknowledge the frustration. Whether they're justified in their frustration or not, that's not the point right now. It's simply acknowledging the fact that, yes, I see that you're frustrated. I understand how this could be really upsetting. I understand how frustrating this could be, because now you're having to take time out to even have this conversation. And I appreciate you bringing it to me, as opposed to just being quiet about it and then going and doing a review on Google or, you know, Yelp or one of these other review places. Okay. Okay. Step 2, let your client know that your goal is to make this right. Let them know that. You may have that intention, but your client needs to know that. And the only way they know that is if you say it. Okay? My goal is to make this right, and my intention is to ensure that you receive everything you were promised as outlined in our agreement. Notice the words that I'm using here, okay? I want to make this right, okay? I want to make this right. I want to resolve this issue. I want to solve this problem. Say it however you want to say it, okay? I want to make this right, and my intention is to make sure that you receive everything that you were promised as is outlined in our agreement. Now, I'm using that terminology very intentionally, right? Because as we go through the process, if we find out that the issue that the client is having is outside of the scope of our agreement, that resolution looks a lot different. And we may not be able to resolve that issue in the context of the current agreement that we have. Okay? But my intention is to ensure that you receive everything that we promised as outlined in our agreement. Okay? Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to schedule some time to meet. Okay? Now, understand that it can be quite frustrating for your client because you're requesting time and they hired you so that you can collapse time or so they could give their time back. Okay? And you also have to understand that we're not going to be able to really get to the bottom of what the problem is with a bunch of back and forth text messages or Voxer or Slack messages. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I am saying that it would be quite difficult. Okay. So you want to schedule some time, and I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do during that meeting so that it is straightforward, to the point, and super efficient. Okay, so that you're not wasting time. But you do need to schedule some time. Okay, schedule a virtual meeting. Okay, and let them know that the reason why you want to schedule some time to talk to them is because you want to find out, you want to give them an opportunity to tell you everything that they are unhappy with so that you can find solutions to those problems, because you want to make this right. And your intention is to ensure that they receive everything that they were promised in accordance with the agreement that both of you signed. Okay? Now, for this meeting, you're going to need two things. Okay. The first thing you need is an AI note taker. So you can do Otter AI, you can use Fathom. There's quite a few of them on the market right now. But the reason why you need an AI note taker is so that you can utilize the second thing that you need to have for the meeting, which are your listening skills. The AI note taker is going to transcribe this entire conversation. So you're not going to have to waste time and brain energy and brain space trying to transcribe everything that your client is saying. Okay? The AI note taker is going to do that for you. What you are listening for are things that you don't understand, issues that seem like they're multiple issues instead of just one issue, anything that you believe that you need clarity on. Okay? Those are the things that you're going to be listening for, and you're listening to the heart of your client. Okay. Remember the original intention. You have to want to make this right. You have to genuinely want to make this right, which means that you have to be willing to listen to what your client is saying. Okay. So those are the two things that you need to have set up prior to the meeting. Okay. The next step. When the meeting begins, the first thing you need to do is you need to thank them for their time. Thank them for their time and let them know that you understand how frustrating this can be and that you really appreciate them even being willing to take the time to have this conversation with you, because there are so many other ways that they could have gone about this. Okay? Then the next thing you want to do is you want to reiterate the fact that you want to make this right and that your intention is that they received everything that they were promised as was written in your signed agreement. You're going to reiterate that again. Okay? Then you're going to let them know that this is a discovery conversation, meaning that we're probably not going to solve all of your problems in this one conversation. I'm having this conversation so that I can hear everything from you about what issues need to be solved, about what it is that you're not happy with. Okay? I need to get everything that you're not pleased with so that I can take that information and go and investigate and come up with amicable solutions for you. But we're probably not going to solve any of the problems on this call today. Now, this part is extremely important because especially if you have a team of people who are doing some of this work for you, for those of you who are like project-based, service-based business owners, those kinds of things. Or if you are a coach, a mentor, if you need to go back through your videos, back through your coaching sessions, if you need to go back through some information, you're going to need to set aside time where you can go through and find out where the ball was dropped. Okay? That's not something that you're going to be able to do on during this discovery session, because you need to be focused completely on your client. So you need to let them know this is a discovery session. Understand, I'm not just gathering information for the purposes of hearing everybody talk. I want to take this so that I can schedule the appropriate time to sit down either by myself or with my team to go over all of these things and figure out where the ball was dropped, because we want to make this right for you. Okay? Okay. Now, the way you're going to have this conversation is important because you have an AI note taker. So the AI note taker is going to take notes based on what is said. When you go back through the transcript, you need to be able to quickly identify where the different problems are, or where the different issues are. So you're going to structure this conversation in a specific way. Now, understand that when people, especially when people are frustrated, when they're voicing their frustrations, the conversation isn't linear. Okay. So I'm going to give you a way to structure this conversation, but you're also going to have to understand that the conversation is not going to be linear. So you will have to improvise so that when you go back through the transcript from your AI note taker, you're able to quickly identify where the questions and the answers are. Okay. So what you're going to say is, let's start with the first issue. What is your first issue? Or what is the first thing that you're unhappy with? Or what is the first problem? Okay. Understand, remember what I said, conversations are not linear. You may get someone who will give you one issue at a time. You may be talking to a client where as soon as you open up the door for them to speak, they're going to give you all 14 issues in the span of a minute and 30 seconds. Okay? Just understand that. This is the reason why you've got your AI note taker, but this is where you're taking notes, because you can say, "Oh, okay, that actually sounds like a different issue. Let me jot that down. That sounds like a different issue. Let me jot that down so I can go back and ask clarifying questions in this conversation." Okay? Okay. Now, when you say what is your first issue, or you give them the opportunity to speak, let your client speak. Do not interrupt your client. Do not offer a solution. Do not correct your client. Even if your client says something that you know with 100% certainty is absolutely wrong, do not correct your client. That may be a hard one because you're listening and your client may say something like, you promised me that I was going to have an interactive website that had 14 videos on it. And I never promised that. I never would have promised that because we don't even do that. Like, that. Do not correct your client. Don't correct them. The only thing you are doing is listening. Let your client speak. Because remember, this is a discovery conversation. It is not a solution conversation. You're not providing any solutions at this time. And it is not a matter of who is right and who is wrong. You have to be more interested in solving the problem than you are in being right. So even if your client says something that is 100% wrong, do not interrupt your client. Let your client speak. And while your client is speaking, you are jotting down notes. Oh, that's a separate issue. Need to ask some clarifying questions on that. They said this, this, this. I'm not really sure what that means. So on and so forth. Okay. Let them say everything that they have to say. And then when they're done, you're going to go back and ask clarifying questions. So if everything that they said was about one issue, then ask your clarifying questions about anything that you may have misunderstood or that you don't get or that doesn't make sense to you. Ask those clarifying questions. If they gave you multiple issues, then what you want to do is you want to separate those issues one by one. Okay, so the first problem that I'm hearing is such and such and such and such. Tell me more about that. What did you mean when you said this? You use this word. What do you mean by that? When you said blank, explain that to me a little bit more. Okay. And the reason why you're being really intentional about how you're asking these questions is, remember, you've got an AI note taker, so there's going to be a transcript. So you want to be able to go through in your transcript where it says, tell me more about this. Well, if you see a question that says, tell me more about this, you need to read up further in the transcript because evidently there was an issue that was before that. So it makes it really easy for you to go in and pick out the information that you need to come up with a solution. Okay. And then you're going to repeat this process. Okay, so the first issue I'm hearing is this, and the second issue that I'm hearing is this, and the fifth issue that I'm hearing is this. And you're going to repeat this process until they have given you all of the issues that they are having with your product, with your service, with your deliverable, with the relationship. Okay? Okay. Once they have given you everything, you're going to ask, is there anything else you would like me to know before I take this back to my team, or before I take this, back to my office, or before I start looking over this information? Is there anything else that you would like me to know? Let them speak. If they have anything, ask clarifying questions if necessary. Okay? Then once they have done that, you're going to ask this question. What would we need to do to make this right for you? Now, hear me. The answer to this question may be something that you do not want to hear. The answer to this question may be something that's outside of your policies and procedures. Okay? Remember, this is not a solutions finding conversation. This is not a fault finding conversation. This is a discovery conversation. You're just gathering information. Okay. What would we need to do to make this right for you? They may say you need to give me a full refund on everything it is that I have paid. Just take the information down. This is not the time for you to go back and forth and say, we have a no refund policy. You know you have a no refund policy. But you've got to take this information, you've got to figure out, okay, where was the ball dropped? Because you need to know whether or not you can even make good on that policy right now. Okay. And so let them say whatever they need to say. What is it that we need to do to make this right? Okay. Now, let's say if the only answer they give you is that I want a full refund of everything that I've paid, then you can ask, if we do one, two, three, four, and five, which so go through their issues, if we are able to, fix this and fix this and fix this and fix this, will you say that we met our end of our agreement? And they may say yes, they may say no, right? The answer to that question is going to determine how you come up with a solution. Because if the answer is no, and this person is hell bent on getting a refund for everything that they've already paid, then that's a completely different conversation that you need to have with yourself and your team about what type of resolutions there can be to these issues. Because this person is literally telling you, like, no, like, the only thing I care about is I just want a refund. Right. So that's a different kind of conversation that you need to have with your team. But you may find that this person says, well, yeah, I'm going to be pissed about it because I feel like, it's taking longer than it should have, or it should have been done right the first time, or however it is that they're feeling. But yeah, I mean, if you do this, and this, then I will say that you have met your end of the agreement. Okay. Then once they answer that question for you, you're going to reiterate again that your goal is to make this right. And that your intention is that they receive everything that they were promised as outlined in the agreement that both of you signed, that both of your companies signed together. Okay? Now, at this point, you're going to tell your client what you're going to do with what they have given you. I'm going to take this back and I'm going to review. The first thing I'm going to look for is whether or not this is within the scope of our agreement. Okay. I want to find out whether or not this is actually within the scope of our agreement. And you may find that when you say that, right, they may be like, well, actually, it is in the scope of your agreement. I've got your agreement here, 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 and here. Okay. Okay. I want to take this back to my team. And we want to first check and see if this is within the scope of our agreement. Okay. If it is within the scope of our agreement, we want to see if we actually did complete it. And maybe we just didn't do a good job of showing it to you, or we actually did meet this metric, or this actually did happen, or whatever the situation may be. Okay. And if we indeed did not complete it, then we need to figure out what's going to be required for us to complete it and how quickly we can get this done for you, or how quickly we can get you this result, or what the change in the relationship needs to be. You can formulate this based on your business and based on whatever it is that you sold to this client. Okay. But the idea is you want to tell them exactly what you're going to be doing with the information that they have given you. Okay. And then you want to ask, would you like to schedule a follow-up meeting, or would you like for me to just follow up with you via email? Okay. If they would prefer a follow-up meeting to go over the solutions, now be clear, a meeting for us to go over the solutions, because now that I have the problems, I need to figure out what the solutions are going to be. How would you like me to deliver those solutions to you? Because I want to make sure that you approve of those solutions before we move forward. Okay. Would you like a meeting, or would you like me to send this to you via email? Okay. If they would like a meeting, you're going to book the meeting before you get off the call. Do not get off of the call without booking that meeting. Okay. And if they would like you to follow up with them via email, then that's where, well, we'll get to that later. If they're going to follow up with you via email, there's a way that you're going to be able to do that. Okay. Okay. Now, call's over. Everybody says their goodbyes. Within 30 minutes or less, you need to send an email with the following: thanking them, a message that thanks them for their time and acknowledges their frustration. I understand how frustrating this can be. I understand how upsetting this can be. I thank you again so much for taking the time to give us the opportunity to resolve these issues for you. Okay? You want to reiterate again. Our goal is to make this right. We want to make this right for you. So yes, at this point, we've done this about 4 or 5 times. So you're going to find 4 or 5 different ways to say the exact same thing. But the bottom line is you're going to reiterate, we want to make this right. And we want to make sure that you get everything that you were promised as outlined in the agreement that both of us signed. Okay? Reiterate what you discussed at the closing of the call, which is what you're going to do with the information. As we discussed in the call, we are going to take this information and we're going to evaluate it for the following. Is it within our scope? If it is within our scope, did we do it? If we didn't do it, what is it going to take for us to get it done? And how soon can we get that done? You're going to reiterate that in the email. And then you're also going to include a link to the video as well as a link to the transcript from the call. Okay? That's what you're going to include in that email. Once that email is sent, then you move on to what I call the issue resolution plan. And that's what we're going to be covering in the second video. I'm going to go over what the issue resolution plan is. I'm going to give you the template for the issue resolution plan. I'm going to give you the template that you're going to send to your client when you send them that plan. I'm going to also give you the project and task management template for those of you who have teams, because your team members are going to be doing a lot of this work on the back end. So I'm going to give you that project management template so that you can always see where they are in the development of, in the development of this resolution plan. Okay, so that's going to be in video 2. So again, if you are not in the business playground, that's the name of our group coaching membership. It's the Elite Business Playground group coaching membership. If you're in the group coaching membership, this is going to be uploaded to your portal as soon as it's done. You don't even have to worry about it. If you're not, there's going to be a link below for you to go ahead and join, or you'll have the ability to purchase this as a standalone course once we put it in the portal as its own standalone course. Okay, so those are the 2 ways that you can get access to it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And I hope this was helpful. Come back and tell me how this worked for you if you had to use it. Okay, bye.